More than 6,500 acres just burned in under 24 hours near Reno, Nevada, and the fire is currently sitting at 0% containment. Officials just upgraded evacuation orders to go now for an entire stretch of communities, meaning residents have to leave immediately, not pack and wait. Here's the exact number I'm going to give you at the end of this video, and it's not the acreage. It's a wind speed specific to one named local weather phenomenon that meteorologists in this exact region watch more closely than almost anything else, because it's the single biggest factor deciding whether this fire keeps outrunning containment lines or finally slows down. If tracking real wildfire behavior and the actual science behind it interests you, subscribing costs nothing, and it means you'll be here for the update once we know which way this one goes. Let's start with exactly what's burning right now, because the timeline itself tells you how fast this situation actually developed. According to Cal Fire Incident Information, the bug fire started at approximately 4:08 in the afternoon. On Saturday, August 8th, Bestia east of U.S. Route 395 and south of Bringman Road in Lassen County, California, right at the California-Nevada state line. Early reports put it at roughly 50 acres. Within hours, wind pushed it past 3,000 acres. By Sunday morning, it had crossed 6,500 acres and had spread directly into Washoe County, Nevada, prompting Washoe County's Regional Information Center to formally describe it as a wind-driven wildfire, with an explicit warning that conditions can change rapidly. Here's exactly who's being told to leave right now. Evacuation levels have increased to evacuate now, sometimes written as go now, across Cold Springs, Canyon Hills, and neighborhoods west of Woodland Village near White Lake. In California, Lassen County issued an evacuation warning for Zone LAS 671B, while Sierra County issued a warning for Zone SIE E025. The evacuation center has been established at the Evelyn Mount Community Center at 1301 Valley Road in Reno, with a separate large animal evacuation center at the Reno Livestock Event Center, accessed through Gate 2. Deputy Chief Shannon Lewis of Truckee Meadows Fire put the actual stakes as plainly as possible. "If we do have an evacuation warning," she said, "it is so important to leave." Here's a genuinely important update as of this exact morning that deserves to be said clearly, not buried at the end. As of Sunday morning, August 9th, the fire has grown to 6,528 acres, still at 0% containment according to CAL FIRE. But fire officials have specifically confirmed that no structures have been lost and no injuries have been reported, as crews continue focusing specifically on slowing the fire's spread and protecting homes directly in its path. That's a genuinely good sign this early in an uncontained, wind-driven fire, even though 0% containment means the situation remains highly active and genuinely capable of changing fast. It's worth being honest about something right at the start because the cause of this fire matters. Officials with the Bureau of Land Management's Carson City District have not yet determined the cause. It remains under active investigation. That's a meaningfully different situation from, say, a lightning-triggered fire, where the cause is confirmed within hours. Right now, we genuinely don't know what started this, and I'd rather tell you that honestly than guess. If this specific combination, a wind-driven fire exploding in size within hours near Reno, sounds familiar, it should. This isn't the first time this exact region has lived through almost this identical scenario, and understanding what happened last time tells you a great deal about what could still be ahead this time. Back on September 7th, 2024, a fire later named the Davis Fire ignited in Davis Creek Regional Park, roughly 20 miles south of Reno. In Washoe Valley, Nevada, the same county now dealing with the bug fire. The cause was later confirmed as an improperly extinguished campfire. By that evening, it had already grown to 2,500 acres. Sustained winds reached up to 40 miles an hour on September 11th, driven by a low-pressure system passing directly over the fire, and by the time crews finally got it under control 18 days later, it had burned 5,124 acres, destroyed 14 structures and 22 outbuildings, and forced approximately 20,000 people out of their homes. One firefighter suffered a non-fatal injury during the response. Here's the detail from that 2024 fire that matters most for understanding this weekend specifically. Investigators later found that 2024's wet spring had produced an unusually heavy crop of cheatgrass, an invasive annual weed, that explodes across the landscape during wet winters, then cures out into a dense, extremely flammable carpet by early summer. That same cheatgrass dynamic is playing out again this year. According to the Nevada Division of Forestry, an abundant cheatgrass crop is now dry across much of western and central Nevada, adding significantly to the fuel load feeding fires like this one right now. It's also worth being precise about the human cost specifically, because getting that number right matters. The Davis fire produced 0 confirmed losses of life. One firefighter was injured, not critically. 20,000 people had their lives disrupted for over 2 weeks, and 14 families lost their homes entirely. That's the honest scale of what a fire like this can do to a community. Serious and life-altering for those directly in its path, without needing any exaggeration to make the point. Let's talk about the actual wind mechanism driving fires like this one, because it has a specific local name, and understanding it explains why this particular corner of Nevada produces wind-driven fires so consistently. Meteorologists in this region call it the Washoe Zephyr. It's created by pressure and temperature differences between the Sierra Nevada mountains and the hot desert basins of central Nevada. Forecasters typically compare temperatures in Truckee, up in the Sierra, against temperatures in Lovelock, out in the desert basin, to estimate how strong that evening wind will actually get. As a rough rule, if Lovelock is sitting at 90 degrees while Truckee sits at 70, the Zephyr will gust around 30 miles an hour. When a larger weather system moves through on top of that existing pressure gradient, the Zephyr gets stronger still. Here's exactly why that particular wind matters so much for fire behavior specifically. It blows from the west, and even a modest 25-mile-an-hour breeze is genuinely enough to push a fire's spread rate beyond what ground crews can keep pace with. The National Weather Service's red flag warning criteria for this region flag the combination of gusty wind and low humidity, capable of causing a fire to rapidly grow in size and intensity before first responders can contain it. It's worth understanding just how active this fire season has already been across Nevada as a whole, because the bug fire isn't isolated. Roughly 2 months before this fire ignited, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo and state officials held a briefing warning of a dangerous year. By early August, monitoring showed 118 individual fires and 2.9 million acres burned across the west, running above the 10-year average. The same weekend the bug fire ignited, red flag warnings were active simultaneously across the Sierra Front, Great Basin, and Mojave. One office issued a particularly dangerous situation tag, a designation reserved for genuinely rare, especially severe fire weather setups. The bug fire is also not the only fire currently burning across Nevada, showing how stretched firefighting resources actually are. Nevada crews were also working the Mouse Meadow fire in Nye County, already past 37,000 acres and still at 0% containment, and the New Pass fire in Churchill County, over 31,000 acres, plus fires in Lincoln, White Pine, and Elko counties. There's even a separate smaller fire, the Diablo fire, burning in Washoe County itself, where the bug fire is spreading. This is the direct result of statewide conditions: cured cheatgrass, extended heat, and repeated red flag wind events. State agencies issued a joint statement confirming they are coordinating wildfire suppression efforts happening at the same time. Zooming out, this fits inside a historic national fire season. The 2026 season has already burned more than 6.2 million acres. Oregon is managing 45 active large fires, Idaho has 15, and Washington has 32 active fires, covering hundreds of thousands of acres. The bug fire isn't an isolated incident. It's one entry in one of the most severe wildfire years the modern record has tracked. It's worth explaining what evacuation levels actually mean. Evacuation warnings mean residents should prepare to leave and stay alert. Evacuate now, or go now, is the most urgent tier, issued when there is no longer time to wait for a gradual departure. Residents need to check live evacuation maps rather than relying on social media posts from an hour ago. There's also a heat factor. High temperatures between 97 and 102 degrees mean the landscape never gets a chance to cool down. Heat advisories cover northern Washoe County and the Reno-Carson City area through Monday morning. As of the most recent reporting, the bug fire has not damaged any structures. This is different from the Davis fire. Evacuations are precautionary, ordered because the fire's proximity to routes like US 395 created genuine risk. Let's go deeper on that cheatgrass factor, because it's genuinely one of the most important, least understood pieces of why Nevada's fire seasons have gotten worse. It isn't really about temperature at all. Cheatgrass, scientifically known as Bromus tectorum, is an invasive annual plant that isn't native to the American West. It arrived from Eurasia in the late 1800s, likely mixed into contaminated grain shipments, and has since spread across tens of millions of acres. In a wet winter and spring, cheatgrass germinates explosively, carpeting the desert floor in a dense green mat weeks before native vegetation would normally begin growing. Then, as summer heat arrives, that same grass cures out almost uniformly across huge areas, turning into a continuous, tinder-dry layer of fine fuel. That connectivity is the actual danger. Native desert vegetation naturally grows in patches, with bare soil in between acting as a natural fire break. Cheatgrass fills in those gaps completely, creating an unbroken carpet of fuel that lets a fire race across terrain that would have naturally slowed it. Fire ecologists have documented that cheatgrass-dominated landscapes now burn significantly more frequently than the native sagebrush ecosystems they've replaced. Each fire wipes out more native plants, while cheatgrass regrows aggressively, actively reshaping the landscape into something more flammable, one fire at a time. Recent wet conditions produced an abundant cheatgrass crop across western and central Nevada, and that same grass is now cured and dry heading into peak season. This provided the fuel bed that let the bug fire jump from roughly 50 acres to over 3,000 acres within just a few hours of ignition. It's worth understanding how the National Weather Service arrives at a red flag warning. It isn't a vague judgment call. It's based on measurable thresholds. Forecasters look for a defined combination: sustained winds and humidity dropping into a specific critical range, layered on top of dry fuels. The warnings this weekend cited winds in the 15 to 30 mile an hour range, with gusts reaching 45, and humidity minimums dropping as low as 7%. Officials have been direct about which everyday activities become dangerous. Adam Mayberry noted the department responded to fires caused by target shooting alone. Guidance is straightforward. Postpone anything that could throw a spark, including mowing dry grass, welding, or riding ATVs through dry vegetation. Washoe County has now experienced 2 wind-driven fires in the same geographic corridor in under 2 years. This is a worsening pattern. The 2024 Davis Fire and the Bug Fire share the same ingredients: abundant cheatgrass, sudden wind events, and extreme heat preventing overnight moisture recovery. The Caldor Fire in 2021 provides a benchmark. It started from a single bullet igniting dry brush and grew into a massive disaster. It forced more than 53,000 people from their homes and destroyed over 1,000 structures. That scale is why officials treat these fires so seriously. The ignition source barely matters once wind and cured fuel take over. What matters is how fast crews get ahead of it. That's precisely the window Washoe and Lassen County crews are racing against right now. Understanding the fuel is the first step in the fight. Let's talk honestly about what actually determines whether the bug fire ends up closer to a contained, manageable incident or a repeat of the Davis fire. The honest answer comes down almost entirely to that one wind measurement I promised you at the start. Meteorologists compare Truckey's temperature against Lovelock's each afternoon because that gap predicts how hard the Washoe Zephyr will blow that evening. Evening wind is precisely when fires like this one make their fastest, most dangerous runs. Firefighters can build containment lines steadily through the calmer morning hours, and then watch a fire jump those same lines entirely once afternoon heat builds. That's exactly the pattern behind the Davis Fire's explosive September 11th run at 40 miles an hour, and it's exactly the pattern fire behavior analysts are watching for right now with the bug fire. A wind-driven wildfire that didn't exist 24 hours ago has already burned more than 6,500 acres, forced evacuations across Nevada and California communities. It is burning through exactly the kind of cheatgrass-fueled terrain that produced this same region's most destructive recent fire less than 2 years ago. The cause remains under investigation. No structures have been lost so far. And whether that stays true depends heavily on a wind pattern with an actual name. If there is one sentence to take away, let it be this: the difference will likely be decided by the Washoe Zephyr, a locally named evening wind. Whether it stays below or climbs past the 30 to 40 mile an hour range that turns a contained fire back into an uncontained one. Based on the cheatgrass fuel load and active red flag conditions, do you think the bug fire gets contained within the next 72 hours? Drop your prediction in the comments, because I'm going to come back to this video once containment numbers actually firm up. If you're in Washoe County or Lassen County, please check the live evacuation map directly and follow instructions from local law enforcement. We'll keep tracking this closely as containment numbers update. Subscribe so you don't miss that update. We'll see you in the next one.